The caged bird dreams. The sun poured over the red clay roads of Stamps, Arkansas, casting long shadows behind the barefoot girl walking alone. Her name was Marguerite, though only her mother ever used it. Everyone else called her Maya, a name born from her brother's soft tongue, and the only thing that ever truly felt like hers. She was just 8 years old when silence became her refuge. Maya did not speak, not after the incident. The court had demanded her voice, forced her to name the man who'd stolen more than her innocence. Days later, he was found dead, and though she had not touched him, Maya believed her words had killed him. So, she stopped speaking altogether. At her grandmother's general store, she moved like breath, quiet, unseen. She swept the wooden floor each morning and placed penny candy in the children's hands with a soft smile. But no words, not even a whisper. Yet inside her, whole worlds were blooming. She read every book that would fit into her arms. Dickens, the Psalms, Shakespeare. She clung to the words like lifelines, tasting them silently, memorizing their weight. At night, she'd lay in bed, reciting sonnets in her head, imagining that if she ever spoke again, it would be in poetry. The town didn't understand her silence. Some said she was simple, others said she was strange, but Maya was simply surviving, in the only way she knew how. Then one autumn morning, she saw her reflection in the window of the church. The girl staring back looked small, but there was something sharp behind her eyes. A fire that hadn't gone out, a bird trapped, but not broken. On Sundays, she sat on the back pew, watching lips move, songs rise, sermons shout. And sometimes, when no one was watching, her lips would part just slightly, mouthing the words to old hymns. She wanted to sing. She wanted to scream. She wanted to speak. But fear held her throat like a vice, and silence was safer than guilt. One day, a classmate tripped her on the way home from school. Books flew everywhere. Pages fluttered across the road. She didn't cry or yell. She gathered each page with trembling hands and kept walking, her face stone, her soul loud. Inside, she was writing a story. She didn't know it yet, but that story would one day set her free. And though her lips remained sealed, her eyes began to speak, more vividly with each passing day. In her silence, Maya was listening, to sorrow, to rhythm, to injustice, to truth. And somewhere inside the quiet child walking home with dust on her feet and poetry in her pocket, a voice was beginning to form. A voice that would one day rise, not in a whisper, but in a thunderous, fearless cry. But for now, she waited and dreamed. Words are wings. The first time Mrs. Bertha Flowers stepped into the store, Maya noticed her gloves. Soft, white cotton that never seemed to touch dust. She spoke in full, graceful sentences, as if every word was chosen from a shelf of silk. She was everything Maya was not: elegant, confident, and unafraid of her own voice. Most adults spoke over children. Mrs. Flowers spoke to them. And when she looked at Maya, she saw more than silence. "She has a mind," Mrs. Flowers said to Maya's grandmother one evening. "A deep one. But minds like hers need air and light." That week, Mrs. Flowers sent a note inviting Maya to visit her home. The invitation arrived like a formal letter, though they lived only a few streets apart. Maya clutched it to her chest, unsure whether to feel excited or exposed. Her grandmother pressed a clean dress into her arms. "Don't embarrass me," she muttered, but there was a softness in her eyes. At Mrs. Flowers' house, the air smelled like lemon cookies and fresh paper. Sunlight poured through the windows. On the mantel sat a row of thin, worn books, their spines frayed from love, not neglect. Mrs. Flowers handed Maya a slim volume of poetry. "I want you to read this," she said, "but not just with your eyes. Read it aloud, when you're ready. Words mean more when they're spoken. They carry power then, Maya stared at the book. She wanted to explain. She didn't speak. She couldn't, but Mrs. Flowers only smiled, then began reading herself. Her voice was honey and thunder, slow and deliberate. She read Shakespeare, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and Bible verses that curled around the room like smoke. And something shifted. That night, Maya took the book home and held it under her pillow. When everyone was asleep, she crept to the corner of her room, opened to a marked page, and whispered the words into the darkness. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was sound, and it was hers. Each day after school, she read a little more. Her voice, though brittle, began to stretch. Her tongue grew brave again, shaped by the music of metaphor and rhyme. One morning, while sweeping the front porch, she began humming the words to a poem. Her grandmother turned, startled. "You speakin' now?" Maya didn't answer. She just smiled. The world hadn't changed. People still stared. Some still whispered. But inside Maya, something had awakened. A knowing. That words were more than sounds. They were wings. And though she still hesitated in crowds, when Maya spoke to herself, to her books, to the wind that rustled through stamps, she did so with the dignity of someone learning how to fly. The silence hadn't broken all at once, but the cage door had opened, and the bird, though cautious, had begun to move. Fire in her step. The train to San Francisco rattled beneath her feet, but Maya sat still, spine tall, eyes fixed on the horizon. She was 17, with a child on her hip and verses tucked in her coat pocket. Life hadn't softened, but it had sharpened her. She worked as a streetcar conductor, the first black woman to do so in the city. The uniform scratched at her skin, and the stairs were colder than the fog. But she wore it like armor. Every ticket she punched was a reminder. She belonged, even where she wasn't welcome. Her days were long, but her nights were louder. In smoky clubs and underground theaters, she danced, sang calypso, and recited poetry under dim lights. Her name was announced with flair. Miss Maya Angelou, a name she had chosen, refined, and claimed like a crown. The city became her stage. But Maya wasn't chasing applause. She was chasing truth. In Harlem, she joined protests. In Ghana, she studied history. In Cairo, she edited a newspaper. Every border she crossed expanded her vision. Every room she entered brought stories, and with them, responsibility. Still, the ache from her past lingered, like a wound that refused to scar. When Dr. King called, she listened. When Malcolm X asked for help, she returned. She didn't seek fame. She sought purpose. But the world still struggled to see women like her, black, brilliant, unbowed as whole. So she wrote her life down. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings wasn't a memoir. It was a reckoning. Raw, lyrical, and unflinching. It bore the weight of abuse, abandonment, silence, and resurrection. Publishers warned her. Too honest, too painful, too black, too woman. She published it anyway. Some readers wept. Others raged. Schools banned it. Churches praised it. But one thing was certain. No one ignored it. And Maya stood at the center. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. A witness. A voice no longer silenced by shame. One evening, she stood before a crowded church in Atlanta. The pews were full. Young girls with notebooks, elders with tears in their eyes, men with hands folded in reverence. She recited her poems not as performance, but as testimony. Her voice was not theatrical. It was steady, rich, and lived in. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, she declared, her eyes scanning the crowd. Welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. The room held its breath. She wasn't just reading poetry. She was passing fire. Each syllable carried the weight of every woman silenced, every child overlooked, every truth buried. And yet, Her words did not burn. They illuminated. That night, as she stepped down from the pulpit, someone whispered, "She doesn't just speak, she frees." Maya smiled, gracious but grounded. Her journey wasn't over. The world still demanded more. And she was ready, because now, her fire wasn't high. It danced in her step, and it would not be dimmed. Still she rises. The house was quiet, save for the soft ticking of a grandfather clock and the distant rustle of magnolia trees. Maya sat at her writing desk, wrapped in a silk robe the color of earth after rain. Her hands moved slowly now. Age had worn her bones, but not her conviction. Outside, dawn painted the horizon in pink and amber. A bird sang, perched just beyond the window. Its song was delicate, fierce. Maya smiled. The world had changed around her. Presidents had shaken her hand. Awards lined her shelves. Her books had been translated into dozens of languages. But what mattered most were the letters. The ones from girls in Uganda, boys in Mississippi, mothers from Oakland, daughters from Tehran. They wrote not because she was famous, but because she had spoken truth. She had told them, "You are enough. You are seen. You are not alone." And they believed her. That morning, Maya was scheduled to speak at a small library across town.